All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another live episode of Sky U Pod. As always, we appreciate you all joining us. We look forward to discussing some Gopher football with you. As always, just a reminder, we are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much available wherever you listen to your own podcast. So feel free to hit the like button, subscribe. It helps us spread the awareness of our show to spread the Gopher love of football that we have. And yeah, we love hearing and interacting from you all. Um, but we'll get down to it. Today's show, we have a pretty fun one for you all. We're going to predict how we think the Big Ten standings will shake out, who will be the Gopher MVPs this season, and who we think will end up as the as the conference MVPs on offense and defense. Max Turdy, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing good. I want to start off with this though. People are annoyed of Kirk Herbstreit and always posting about his dog. He's like kind of doing that to gain some favorability. I didn't hate Oregon to like with a passion, but this duck being posted all over the timeline at every stadium in the Big Ten conference building, it's getting to that point. I feel like Oregon feels like they're hated or something, and they're using their beloved mascot to try and get us all on board with them now being in the Big Ten. I've come to terms with it. I don't like the change. I wish conferences would stop changing, but I wasn't going to hold it against Oregon. But I don't know. This duck posting just all over my timeline, I'm kind of sick of it. I don't know if it's supposed to like get me fed up or if it's like we're coming at you thing, just psychological warfare in general. We don't play him this season, but I guess it's working on me if that's the plan because I'm thinking about it, talking about it. But yeah,
It's probably a little bit of all of that. Yeah, it is. I think that it does, I guess, in their defense. Camaraderie, it really gets you excited for here's this new team in the Big Ten, kind of gets angst, built towards Oregon. Maybe drives a little bulletin board material.
My question is, do you think they're sending one person to every spot, or is it like they have multiple ducks out there and they're all going to different spots?
It's got to be multiple ducks.
You think so? They're timing it out, right? As far as like when to post it. Like it's been across several days.
Well, okay, yeah, and it is summer. It's probably just one person. It's just like, it's one student. I would guess that the student's probably on a full ride and everything. And because, that's what you're doing all summer, all season,
so that's what the Nike money can do for you. You can just send your mascot on a countrywide conference trip at this point and go see every school. That's maybe that's the point. Maybe it's a display of wealth to the recruits out there.
I thought it was like Oregon. The millions of jersey combinations that they have.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. It's getting a little much. But hey, I think we play them next year. They're going down.
That's right.
Before we jump in, fellas, let's just dive into a little bit of news. The first week of summer ball is wrapped up. Highlight being an open practice on Saturday this past weekend at Huntington Bank Stadium. Some of the highlights were lots of Max Brosmer praise. He seems to be a legit quarterback, and I'm excited to see him this season. I'm sure you both are as well. Marcus Major, the running back, the graduate transfer, is looking explosive and is getting heavy praises from coaches. So it'll really be interesting to see, will he kind of take on the reins fully? Will it be kind of the 1-2 punch with Darius Taylor? That much is to be seen. O-line is looking very strong early. And defensively, Devin Eastern is a standout on the defensive interior. I personally think that this defensive line, I think we've mentioned it before, is going to be one of the best we've seen in many years, probably dating back since the Kill was here. But yeah, what do you guys think? Anything stand out after this first week of summer camp?
I'll let Max go first.
I don't know. I feel like it's hard because you read like what a lot of the coaches talk about, and it's just they're really not saying a whole lot. I mean, they definitely sound excited, which is good, but they're very clearly trying to say everyone's name and get everyone kind of in the mix and include everybody. So there's really no clear like okay, they talked about this one guy a lot, um, but at the same time, I mean, they've really harped on like the defense's ability, and like every single day there's something that they're getting better and kind of figuring out the new Corey Heatherman defense. Um, and like you said, they did talk about the depth at D line, and some guys they kind of Heatherman talked about it having like positionless players that's going to be pretty vital if we have more versatility there, that more guys can kind of plug in and play in different packages. And then offensively too, if they're really as deep as they're making it sound like at wide receiver and running back, and if Brosmer's really as cerebral as they're talking about, then I don't know. I'm excited about what they're saying, but it's still kind of a lot of nothing at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we got Co Sibs. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your handle there, but he says that Eastern and Smith look good Saturday night. That's awesome. I'm
yeah.
really hoping. I have high expectations this year, honestly. Curdy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's funny that we heard Anthony Smith getting bumped inside. I think we speculated that a few months ago,
Yeah,
actually, on this podcast as just a preseason show. So I think PJ referenced it as like a speed package or something. I'm guessing based on how he was talking about, we have something in the works of how like Mike Zimmer used to move Daniil Hunter inside or Everson Griffin inside, and they would both
yeah,
rush up the gut. Sounds like they might have something like that in place for Anthony Smith, which is great. To me, though, it's the easiest, but it is the most exciting. Just hearing more praise about Max Brosmer being legit. I mean, this was the first kind of live bullets we got to see him, in action at all. We didn't get have a spring game. There's a couple spring practices that Dickeytown athlete members got to go to, but unfortunately, we weren't able to make any of those. But just hearing praise and how he looks the part, I mean, that's got me excited. I was been hesitant to buy in to this passing game. Still got to have the receivers come out and show it, but for me, it is the encouraging play and compliments that the quarterback Brosmer's getting.
yeah. Well, yeah. Excited. I'm glad this early on. Looks like they're looking pretty good. Got some camp left in them too, so hopefully they stay healthy and keep improving week after week
Yeah,
in time for that home game against North Carolina.
that's the big thing too. I just want to point out is we haven't had to talk about any significant injuries at this point in camp. When like
Yeah,
last year we lost Cody Lindenberg like 2 or 3 days before the season started. So
right.
knock on wood that nothing like that's in the works. But also just want to shout out Marcus Major because he was out most of spring camp, so we didn't hear a lot about him. There's a lot of I'm on a Bangura from Ohio. I can't pronounce. I forget how his first name's pronounced, but having Marcus Major, who's like a little bit of a different style back, kind of give you that 1-2 punch, like you were saying, Shuddy, just a change of pace back in there. That would be exciting to have three guys that you can lean on. Even though we know Darius Taylor will get the majority of carries, but having Majors
Right.
play a factor in there is going to be nice.
Right. Yeah. It's exciting. It's going to be an awesome season. I'm predicting.
Hope so.
One thing that stood out
Um.
too, sorry, really
Yeah.
quick, just to like add into like what the coaches talked about. Sometimes I feel like in the past, PJ sort of tries to make everything seem positive, even if it's like the worst part about the team. But at the media day, like he didn't shy away from last year being like, "Oh yeah, the passing game was terrible," but like he basically made it a point of like we know what the priorities were to like make this offense go, and that's
Yeah,
what we did this offseason. So that at least too is kind of promising that like he's not trying to sugarcoat it. He's just saying like it was terrible, but we think we fixed it. So if
yeah,
he was coming out and saying like, "Well, it wasn't that bad last year," I feel like that'd be him being like setting low expectations for this season.
right, right. Yeah, Majors look good as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited too. I keep forgetting we have is it Christian Driver, Donald Driver's kid, the
Yeah.
transfer from Penn State. I keep forgetting because he was also a guy that missed most of spring being banged up. And so I'm pretty confident and everything Ryan Burns has reported, and from what we've heard from people, or just read from people that write on the Gophs, just that the starting three receivers will be, Jackson, Lemecki, Brockington, and I'm blanking on 11's Elijah Spencer.
Elijah Spencer.
Yeah. So I feel good that those will probably be the starting three, but you're always going to need depth, and just didn't have a lot of guys that could get it done. So having guys like that just getting added into the mix, interesting to see how that plays out this year.
Absolutely. Um, well, with all that, we'll jump right into our first topic. First topic, we all went through and predicted each game on the schedule for every Big Ten team for this upcoming season. Um, and this kind of just let us know who we think's going to end up at the top of the standings, at the bottom of the standings, at the conclusion of the seasons. Uh, like I said, all three of us have done that, and we're just going to combine what all three of us have said, and then we'll have the official 2024 Sky U Pod standings prediction. So let's take a look at teams 18 through 13, and we'll kind of give you the rationale on these teams here. I guess I can start with this if you guys would like.
Go ahead.
We'll start at the bottom. Northwestern Wildcats. I think that this one is. I don't want to say self-explanatory, but given the nature of their schedule, and just kind of what we saw from them last year, I know that there was a lot of drama, and they actually did a little better throughout the season. I just think that they are probably going to be at the bottom of the totem pole this year. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about that. Max, Kurt.
Yeah, I feel like Northwestern. I like what they did last year. I think they were kind of the surprise team, obviously of the Big Ten, but that's a lot to try to reproduce. And it's their new coach's kind of first full like real year. I mean, I know he was there the whole season
Yeah.
last year, but he kind of had to take over late. So I don't know. I feel like kind of recreating that magic is going to be tough. They did lose, seem like quite a bit in the portal, but at the same time, last year they really didn't seem like they had a lot to work with either, and they were somewhat successful. So I don't know. To me, it just feels like it's a swing down this year for them and kind of a tougher schedule, but I could be surprised, I guess. They're the team that always seems to surprise you, so that's where I'm at with them.
Yeah, for me, it was losing the quarterback to I later in the summer to in the portal. I don't know how quickly you can replace that and see them bring anyone else in. And so if he was their main guy, losing him late's a concern. So I didn't have them at dead last. I think they'll still be in that. I have them in the bottom third, but I still think they'll get a couple wins in the Big Ten this season. It's just like you guys said, they kind of lost a lot, and transitioning without some of the playmakers they had last year, and without some of the staff, right? Like part of the thing Braun agreed to when taking the full time job was that he had to basically get rid of all of Fitz's leftover guys that were still there. So just a lot of question marks. Not sure how it's all going to gel with the new staff and new quarterback this year. So I think it's a fair spot.
Yeah, and then jumping in right above them, we all have the Indiana Hoosiers. Max, we'll go ahead and start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think I probably had them highest of the three of us. I know
Yeah.
I feel like I initially had them lower, but then the more I looked at their roster, and I don't know, I feel like in a way, even though they lost a lot from last year, I think that's probably a good thing. They get a new coach, and I believe that's Kurt Signetti from
Yep.
James Madison. Is that right?
Yep.
So I don't know, probably an improvement at coach. They do get the quarterback from Ohio Bobcats in the MAC, who's getting some looks as a potentially NFL type player. That he's got some skill there too. So I don't know. I think overall they've improved. I think they bring back their top wide receiver too. Last year was like a freak, just a huge, big body wide receiver. Um, Defensively, I guess I don't know a lot about them, but I feel like they might not be as bad as they were last year. So I had them a little bit higher, but I can understand why you have it
Yeah,
that low.
so I fully intended before, because we used the site, and we should have shut out the site. I don't remember what it was called. Max had sent it in, but you can pick every game for the Big Ten, and I fully intend. I'm like, I'm higher on Indiana than most. Like, I liked their transfers that they brought in, and then
Yeah.
I went through a picked them, and every time I had them second from the bottom. Like, oh man, it's just a tougher schedule. Like the Big Ten,
Yeah.
adding four more quality teams, it's tough to find wins. I think there's about half the teams, if not more, that could end up in this bottom six just because
Right.
of how much we don't know. So I'll actually jump ahead to UCLA. For me, I thought, I mean, I know nothing about them, I guess, other than like losing their quarterback more to be the backup to Dylan Gabriel at Oregon now. Like, I'm very low on UCLA. For me, they were the
Yeah.
easy bottom team. I don't expect them to do well in this first year. You had Deshaun Foster freeze up at the Big Ten media days. I don't know if that's a sign of things to come for the actual team, but I just, it's a first year head coach and a new conference with a lot of travel for them coming out east, from their home for half the season. So I don't know. I think UCLA is in for a tough year. Um, I don't know. Any other thoughts on UCLA?
No, I totally agree with you. New head coach, they weren't really that impressive last year. It's going to be tough, I think, for them to integrate into a new conference, a new kind of play. They're not like a Oregon or even a USC, who I think, regardless, can kind of implement themselves into the conference. It's going to take some time for UCLA. So um, definitely, they were my number four, or I'm sorry, number 15. So 15, 16, I think that's just a good range.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I guess like the comment says, like UCLA, I feel like they've always had talent and now they just have
Yeah.
Yeah,
lesser coaching
they
staff.
did have a
So
good D last year.
they
Um,
did, but they also
I
lost like all of it.
Yeah, I just I don't know. The first year head coach in the new conference, I just got to see it. And I fully admit UCLA is by far the team I feel like I could be the most wrong on. Clearly, I had them at bottom, but yeah, they might surprise some teams. I don't know. Their schedule's also brutal. They have LSU, and who's the other one? They have someone else that's tough in the non-conference as well. I think they have LSU.
Let's see. Yeah, they have LSU. I mean, Penn State,
Yeah, that
Washington,
stretch where we
USC.
play them is absolutely brutal.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway,
it's going to be tough. Um, yeah, we can move on next to our jointed standings here. At 15, we have the Maryland Terrapins. Um, for me, I guess that with the Terrapins, you lose Talia, um, Tua's little brother, as we always call him on this show. Um, and he was kind of like everything for them, their whole offense. I don't know how they're going to be able to um, really kind of win the games that were thanks to him this year. They're going to have to find some great quarterback. I haven't really heard much out of Maryland pertaining to great quarterback play. Um, their schedule, I'd say, is middle of the pack. They do have Oregon, they have USC, Iowa, Penn
yeah,
State. We play them. I think considering that, I think that where we have them as a podcast is probably reasonable. Those are games that I don't see them really winning. Um,
yeah. Well, honestly, for Maryland, I want to hear from Max just because we know how everyone picked them, and Max was lowest on Maryland by far. I think they have a pretty favorable schedule to start out, so I was shocked to see when we merged that they came in at number 15. To be honest,
Yeah, I think I had them second to last on my ratings. I wish I had the schedule still pulled up that we had kind of picked because I feel like there was a stretch where it just got rough for them, and I don't know. I I feel like I've never really been high on Maryland, even though they always seem to kind of turn out some good, successful years out of nowhere. But
Sure.
I think hearing too, just from like some Maryland fans, like there are like they've just been sick of Loxley for so long, and now that you have like no talented quarterback who's been your entire team, I don't know how that's gonna work. But
Well, yeah, their first 6 games, they open up with UConn. That's a W. Then they host Sparty. That's interesting because I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I think I favor Maryland just because, I mean, they returned that front seven and they had a sneaky, decent defense last year. So we'll
Yeah.
see on that. And then Villanova, Indiana, Northwestern. That's their first 6 games. They could go 6-0, and that's
Yeah.
gonna place them on. But I mean, yeah, we don't know life without Tua, so maybe that offense does have
Right.
issues. We'll see. They always seem to have a running back or two that are pretty explosive. So
I
interesting to
had
see how the
I had them
Terrapins do.
finishing 12th with 7-5.
I believe I did as well.
So, but I guess I could see what Max is saying, though. It's very possible that they drop a lot of games. It's
Yeah.
hard to say without Tua's little brother how they're going to do. But yeah, I think defensively they look pretty solid. Guess time will tell.
I must have been in a bad mood when I picked them because I looked down. I have them going 1-8 in the Big Ten.
There you go. All right. Max is a Maryland hater. It's been certified right here on this podcast. All right. And then we'll get through the last two in the bottom 6. We got Purdue at spot 14 and Illinois at spot 13. Purdue, so when we went through, I know Purdue's going to upset somebody they shouldn't, and I didn't pick it. So I had Purdue pretty low on mine, but they always do it to somebody. They could do it here. They got Hudson Card. They got some pieces on defense, but they also lost some pieces on defense in the portal. I don't know all the pieces they added in the portal. That's something I will admit that I haven't been super tuned into, but I just feel like Purdue's going to have a tough time sledding, and their schedule is not favorable. They
It's
catch a
very
lot of the
hard.
big teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think 14 is pretty fair. I think that's
Yeah. They were
you
on
probably
my
have them
actual
higher than Will.
14.
Okay. Yeah, and then Illinois up there at 13. Again, I think that's about where most people have them nationwide. Again, if you're Illinois, in my opinion, you brought in those couple transfers for the offensive line. You just have no idea how well we don't as like outsiders have no idea how it's going to gel for them right away. So to me, if that O line gets cooking and Luke Altmaier has some more weapons to dish out to, is Isaiah Williams back? Do you guys know the receiver?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
If he's back, then yeah, they could be legitimate and could win a lot more games. But again, I got to see that offensive line and losing Jerzon Newton, like that's just not a small loss. So
Williams is not at Illinois anymore.
Yeah, I thought he left. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what Illinois does. Again, a lot of teams we feel like could be in this bottom 6. And I just want to make it clear, these are our standing projections. This isn't our power ranking as far as who we think are the best teams in the Big Ten. It's how we think they're going to finish. So just want to make that clear. Yeah. All right. Should we move to Tier 2? The middle 6.
Moving on to the middle 6 here on numbers 12 through 7. As you can see, pretty solid lineup, I think. Again, like Curtis just mentioned, this is kind of where we think that they'll end up based on wins and losses. Not really in, diving too deep into, I guess, as to why. But, yeah. Number 12 here, we got Sparty. I personally don't think that Sparty is going to be as bad as they were last year. They're always going to churn out talent. And I think that their schedule is a little more favorable this year, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just see something real quick. Okay,
And they've got the quarterback from Oregon State too. So like
they
he's
do.
immensely talented in the limited plays that he's actually played football, but
Yeah,
if it fits right away, yeah, their offense could put
yeah.
up some points, I think.
They do play Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. But I think that the rest of their games here are winnable. I mean, they play Iowa at home. I guess that there could be argument there, but it is at home. If I was offense is what it has been, I don't see why Sparty couldn't pull out a win there.
Right.
Um, yeah. Any other
Um
thoughts?
no, I think Sparty's a tough team again to predict this year, just as far as new coach, a lot of new players. Um a lot of former Oregon State players, so we'll see how Oregon State would have survived in the in the Big Ten, I guess, just because it's basically their team. Um, I know we're gonna get ripped for this one, Max. If you want to jump
Yeah.
anything with Sparty, go ahead. But I just gotta say, I know people are gonna be expecting to see Rutgers higher up than what they probably are on our list. But listen, I went through and I with thinking that Rutgers was going to be a good team again, though. Like, and I looked at their schedule, and yeah, they miss a lot of the big dogs, but there's still a lot of they catch a lot of the middle teams. Like, they play Sparty, they play Wisconsin. I think they have Nebraska as well. I think they have every team that is listed right here. I think Rutgers plays all of them. So, um, depending on how those games going to shake out, it's going to determine their how their season goes.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I mean, I know everyone feels like Rutgers is just like the sweetheart this year. Like Herb Street, I think, picked him as his long shot to make the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
and I get the schedule is very favorable, and I felt like I was more down on them than most, maybe. But then I ended up I couldn't even like try to keep them out of the top 10. It felt like in the final standings,
Yeah.
just with the teams they play, and that's kind of like maybe even forcing a couple losses that I just surprise losses. But yeah, I don't know. I think they
So
have a good
Shuddy,
shot to.
Yeah.
not to
I
blow
have
the
them at
reveal, Shuddy is the one that's
I'm the
really down
hater.
on him. Yeah.
Sorry, Rutgers fans, but I had them at 17. But kind of like we're talking about, I'm looking at their schedule, and it's not like I'm a hater, but you do play Washington. You're on the road against Nebraska. I don't see them really beating Nebraska on the road. That's a toss up game. You know what I mean? I could be totally wrong in saying that, but that's kind of what I felt. You play Wisconsin. UCLA comes to you. That's a doable game. USC you play. Can't see you winning that. I do have you losing to Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan State, and then you play the Gophers as well. I think that we could get the better of Rutgers, though it's to be seen. I don't know. I there these matchups. I just see it going the other way for them. I have them finishing 3-9. That's just how it fell for me.
Which is why you got him so low. That schedule is brutal. Is it too brutal to overcome? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, tough schedule and just I mean, you know the way things kind of go in college football sometimes. Like you get into a tough stretch and it's hard for the kids to to really get up for some games. Um, I think there's probably some more pressure being put on Luke Fickle this year to get that offense working. And I don't know why I'm just not a believer in Tyler Van Dyke. I didn't. I know
Yeah.
he's fine. I know he was decent or had some success at Miami, but I just don't see him being that big of an improvement in this offense. So
Yeah. And to be
it's just
fair,
a
I've heard
really tough stretch of
I've
games.
heard Wisconsin fans kind of say the same thing. A couple of them on X have kind of pointed out that like they're going to go as far as Tyler Van Dyke can. If he plays well, then their offense could be a well-oiled machine. But kind of feel like they said the same thing last year with Mordecai at SMU. So I don't think it's insane. I don't think it's unfathomable that they finished down that low just because of the schedule. Um, but yeah, it is what it is. Um, yeah, Nebraska at 9. I think they're definitely going bowling this year, given that schedule. Um, Apparently Rayola might not be the starting quarterback right off the get go, but I'm not exactly sure on that. I don't think it's been determined, the starter. So if they go with a true freshman quarterback, that's always interesting. And then for me, guys, Washington was the toughest to predict. Like
Yeah.
coming out of the Natty, runner up, lost their coach, and then lost a lot of players just to the NFL. So I'm still expecting him to be pretty solid. I like the hire in Jed Fish there out of Arizona. He had a lot going there, got a decent amount of players to follow him. So they're still going to be formidable. I just don't think they're in that next tier up. So I think we have them in a fair spot. I have them 7-5, um, which I think. But I mean, they could beat Iowa. I don't have them beating Iowa, but they could. They could beat some of those teams. So interesting there. And then, of course, we got the Gophs at 7, probably higher than every national media outlet, but I probably had them the highest. I have us going 8-4 and
Yeah.
and 6-3 in the conference, which is going to put you pretty high in a 18-team league. So that's why I have the Gophers so high. I'm predicting big things. I'm believing in this squad.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice being optimistic.
I think that it's possible. I have them going 7-5 and 4-5 in Big Ten play. Um, it's just going to come down to toss-ups it's throughout their schedules. I think that there are toss-up games. Can you win the majority of them? I hope that's the case. I love the confidence and optimism, Curdy. I'm just not quite there this season.
We all had them in the middle tier. Well, actually, I didn't. Mine would have put them in the next one. But anyway.
Yeah.
All
I think
right.
there's always that one or two that are like, you just can't expect to win every single 50-50 game, like you said, Spencer, but I think it'll be closer to more than not.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. And finally, the top 6 teams in the Big Ten this season. Bang. There you have them. And I think that we all can agree that this was pretty much unanimously similar, give or take a few teams.
So for our audio listeners, we'll just go through. 6 was USC. We have 5, the Iowa Hawkeyes. 4, Penn State Nittany Lions. 3, Michigan Wolverines. 2, the Oregon Ducks. And number 1, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We're buying into that hype, I guess. Yeah, I think. Did you guys have the same top 6? Because, or at least
I
not
actually
in the same order, but
I had Washington and
over Iowa.
Yes.
So you had Iowa out. I had USC out, but Max had all these 6 teams in his top 6. So Max is the best rounder picker. I don't know. I don't know how to describe that, but Max had all the 6 teams in the top 6. So good job, Max. Yeah, I mean, USC, if the defense is good, then I expect them to do very well. I think Miller Moss is going to throw it all over the yard. I think their offense could be top 3 easily in the Big Ten. But I gotta see that offensive line day in and day out against the Big Ten. I gotta see that defensive line day in and day out against the Big Ten. But they're going to be favored in a ton of games, and I think they're going to do well. So USC is immensely talented. Iowa's schedule is going to launch them up the standings, in my opinion. They have a very favorable schedule, as much as you can get a favorable schedule in this new Big Ten. And then Oregon, Ohio State. I do want to say this. Well, I'll let you guys talk about the states. I think Oregon and Ohio State have a tougher schedule than Penn State, and so Penn State could sneak their way into the Big Ten championship game, depending on how it all breaks down. But I just rambled there. I'll turn it over to you guys.
No, I agree with what you just said. 100%. We'll kind of touch on, the playoff predictor for the Big Ten after this. But yeah, you said it perfectly. Penn State, I think they're going to be better than last year. And if they can clean up their defense, I don't see how they don't potentially make the Big Ten championship this season. We know how Ohio State is going to be. We know how Oregon's going to be. Michigan, I don't know if they'll be as good as last year. Certainly not national championship like they were. We know kind of what we heard on the news with their head coach. I don't know what's going to happen
More
with that.
distractions. Yeah.
Right. So, but if there's a team that can handle distractions, I would say that it's probably Michigan. But other than that, yeah, Iowa, I think that you can't get much worse offensively. So yeah, I like them in the top six there. I did have them at number seven, but yeah, I could see them jumping to five. USC, I'm still wondering about their defense, but new coach there, and I think that they're going to do much better than they have been in previous years. Um, yeah, I think that we're going to see. It's going to be interesting who we see in the championship. Ohio State and Oregon do see each other in the regular season. I think that Ohio State does win that game. I think that Ryan Day remembers things. If we remember back when um, they beat Clemson, right?
Yeah.
After losing to them the year before, I think he remembers that these things, gets his team really hyped up to play, and he'll go out there and win the game. I think he's a motivator that way. He's a great coach, and yeah, I think it'll be kind of a similar story with the Oregon after losing. What was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
That's
Yeah,
a good point. Good callback. I just think Ohio State, with how much money they spent on their roster, they gotta win it, and I think
yeah,
they're gonna. Oregon spent money too, and immensely talented, obviously. Uh, I think four teams realistically could actually like win the Big Ten championship game. I'd throw Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and my fourth would be Michigan. Yes, they
yeah.
lost a decent amount. It's a new head coach, but that defense is still going to be nasty. And I still expect them to be able to run the football. So those would be my four teams where, like, if they're in the game, they're going to have a chance to go.
Agreed.
Yeah. For like the top four we have here, like Penn State, I feel like I had Penn State really close to being in a tie for the Big Ten championship game or to make the Big Ten championship game. But just to kind of mix it up, and you alluded to it earlier, Kurt, that Purdue might win one or shock a team, and I just threw in Penn State losing to Purdue just because I
Yeah.
didn't want a big tiebreaker. But it just seems like something that Purdue does randomly when you least
One upsets
expect it.
happen all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it just seems like Penn State would be the team to drop that one too. Like if
Right.
things kind
Sure.
of start to slip away, if
Sure.
coaching issues come up.
That's right.
But yeah, and like Michigan too, I feel like they definitely, even though like Michigan and Washington both lost a lot from last year, I feel like Michigan just still has a lot of the continuity and like top end talent that stayed, and obviously keeping most of the staff helps too. So I don't
Yeah.
think they'll be as down as other people have them, but definitely not to the level that they were last year,
Well,
obviously.
unfortunately, we saw their backups, and they were pretty good as well last
Right.
year
Yeah. I
when
mean,
they got
it's
it.
not. Yeah, it's not going to be too bad, I don't think. But yeah, I think I actually had Oregon finishing at the top of the rankings. I think I had them end
Yep.
up going undefeated, actually. Not necessarily intentionally, but it just kind of worked out that way. But I do think Ohio State will beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. That would be my prediction, that they get
So you have
revenge
Ohio
for the.
State over Oregon in the Big Ten
Yep.
championship game. All right.
Yeah, and I just think Ohio State this year is just like this is their kind of not last shot, but it feels like there's been a lot of buildup, and now that this team, like you said, they've put together kind of a superpower team through the transfer portal and spent a lot to get some really top end players.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see. We'll see what the quarterback looks like coming from Kansas State, but can't really be much worse. I mean, their quarterback situation wasn't bad last year, right? Like it's really never really
Right.
that bad, but for Ohio State's level, it wasn't what they wanted it to be. But yeah, the run game is going to be the scary part for them, especially with bringing in Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss. That's going to be tough.
Yeah. I have Ohio State over Oregon as well, but I just want to say, like, I also have Penn State going 11-1. So I don't know how the tiebreaker is going to work. Like with 3-11-1, or I'm sorry, 2-11-1 teams there. It'll be interesting to see how they decide between Oregon and Penn State if that scenario plays out. Which, by the way, the Big Ten still has not posted a tiebreaker. You would think they want to get out ahead of that before the season starts, so then it doesn't just look like they're putting in
Through
who they want
something.
to put in.
Yeah.
But maybe they actually do want to do that, and they just don't care because of, the new conference, new expanded conference, and the TVD. I don't know, but yeah, you'd think they'd put that out sooner than later. So, do we all have? I have Ohio State over Oregon. Max has Ohio State over Oregon in the Big Ten championship. Shooty, what's your prediction for the Big Ten championship game?
I have Ohio State over Oregon as well. I think that this is just their year. Curtis, you said it perfectly. This is the roster to do it. If they're going to do it, this is the roster, not only to win the Big Ten championship, but to potentially win the whole thing. So, yeah, they're my winner of the Big Ten championship for sure.
Yeah. All
That
right.
won't backfire on us.
No, I know. Hey, it's before. There's never been a harder year though to predict teams and how they're gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, Indiana, UCLA, and who else is a new head coach? Michigan State, all new coaches.
Yeah.
So and the conference is changing. I mean, yeah, Washington. It just there's. It's going to be crazy. So,
yeah.
And plus all those teams from like 14 to really 6, I feel like those teams are all really potentially be interchangeable depending on how, because there's just a lot of unknowns. So we're just, when you sit down and pick these games, you're just thinking, well, I think this is going to work for this team. Maybe this doesn't work quite as well for Rutgers if you're Shooty. He hates you guys.
No. It's hard, and all you listening out there, we encourage you to do this. What's the name of it? It's just like a Big Ten college football predictor.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Is our list trash? Are you agreeing with some of them, disagreeing with some of them? Let us know in the comments. Love to hear what you guys think.
Playoffpredictors.com.
Playoffpredictors.com. Yeah. Let us know. Share with us what you guys think.
Entire season.
Yeah. Before we kind of jump into our second big topic, we did want to discuss about something with the Big Ten standings. We do predict that Penn State could go 11-1, like Curtis mentioned, but they could lose a tiebreaker to Oregon or Ohio State, who goes to the Big Ten championship. So what does that mean for the Big Ten? Well, Coach Matt Rule said during Big Ten Media Days that he believes that the Big Ten deserves 4 teams in the playoff every year with how difficult the league is. He got a lot of heat for saying that. I'll start with you, Max. Do you agree with people giving him a hard time for this? Do you think that the Big Ten deserves 4 teams at least or at most in the college football playoff? And which teams would you think deserve to be in there this year?
Yeah, I mean, deserve, no, but that totally depends on the season. Like, it's hard to say they just deserve it, because if that 4th team is 8-4, like, then no, they probably don't deserve to be in.
Right.
But will they have 4? I mean, the way, like we just saw with Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, USC, if Kirk is right, and Rutgers, like, there could be other teams that slip up there too. So it's not like it's impossible to get 4 teams, but saying they deserve 4 teams no matter what, just based off schedules, I think is bogus. And I think any conference, I don't think that should be the case. We can't all be Notre Dame and just say we just deserve a spot because we're special. So
yeah, I completely agree with that. I think just chalking in 4 spots for the Big Ten and 4 spots for the SEC every year, It's just lame. I mean, it defeats the purpose and a little bit of the pageantry of college football. Like anybody could make it. There's 12 spots open now. If you just take 4 away for that conference and 4 away for that, yeah, there's a lot of team in those conferences now. But and it probably will turn out that way. To be honest, that 4 teams from the Big Ten make it in a lot of the time, and at least 4 from the SEC. They're going to put 5 teams in this year from the SEC. I know they will. That's just how they're gonna go about it. Um, so the SEC is going to get at least 4, probably 5. That's my prediction. And yeah, I don't think you can just set up ahead of time just 4 spots for a conference. That's ridiculous, especially if there are like multiple um, non-power 4 teams having a big year. I know Boise is expected to be one of those teams in contention this year. I know Memphis is potentially one of those teams in contention this year. Like, what if those are both looking like 2 of the top 12 teams by the end of the year? But then if you were to have set those up ahead of time, then only one of them gets that spot. So I think it's not a good idea to have that predetermined, to be honest.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't think what he said was that ludicrous. Like, yeah, the
Right.
Big Ten's going to be one of the top 2 conferences in the country this year.
Yeah. I agree. There's no argument here. I think he just chose his words wrong. I think I know what he meant. He meant, maybe not, hey, you have to slot 4 teams from the Big Ten in the playoff every year. Um, I think I would like to think he was more saying, we have great teams here in the Big Ten. It's a gauntlet. Um, Realistically, you could argue that 4 teams should be in there for scheduling purposes if they're good enough and they win most of their games. But yeah, and Kurt, you said it perfectly. You can't just allot slots to SEC teams and Big Ten teams. We know that there are some people out there. Maybe I'm a hater, but we know that there's going to be people up in arms if they're not 4 or 5 SEC teams in the college
Right.
football playoff this year. That's just kind of the nature of the beast down there. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, that's what this expanded playoff was for. It's for these smaller teams that you have a 12-0 team, 11-1 team from a non-power 4, conference team. That's what makes it fun. They kind of slip in there, and maybe they can make a run in the playoff or win a game that's
Right.
unthinkable. But that's the fun about college football, and I hope that they preserve that part of the game that's already changed so much in the past few years. Um,
How many teams you got in the Big Ten from the Big Ten going?
I I do think that 3 teams will make it. I think that it will be Ohio State, Oregon, and I think either Penn State or Michigan. I'm going to say Michigan. That's what I have on my um, playoff predictor. But I could see Penn State getting in there. I don't think 4 will quite make it, but I do think 3 teams can make it in there.
I think I have 3 as well. I think Penn State might be the one I feel the safest about putting in, just because they have Ohio State and they have USC. But other than that, I think they got the easiest path. I think their schedule's easier than Michigan's, Oregon's, and Ohio State. So
Yeah,
I I don't think they're going to be the favorite to win the conference. Obviously, nobody really has them at that, but I think 11-1 is on the table. And if you're a Penn State fan, you're looking at the schedule and be like, this has to be the year. We got to get to the playoff. And I think if you go 11-1 and you're Penn State, um, it might even be better depending on how the rankings shake out that you missed that conference championship game and then you just get to sit there at 11-1. You're probably guaranteed to be taken as an at-large bid, without picking up another loss. Like if they were to lose to potentially Ohio State twice, they might look down on that more, the committee that is. So I think Penn State might have the best chance at safely making it. I think Ohio State and Oregon are better teams. I just think they have a lot more tougher games to potentially slip up. So yeah, I got 3. I got Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State making the college football playoff this year. And I will say, if Michigan can beat Texas, then I think they get in as well. They play Texas second game of the year, I think, for them. But I right now, until I see Michigan's quarterback play, I gave that one to Texas. But if they can beat Texas, I think at 10-2, which is what they'd be then for me, I think they would get in as well.
Yeah, I have the exact same three: Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. Yeah, I think Michigan's close, but yeah, having to play Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State all in the regular season, that's tough.
Yeah, it's
But
brutal.
Right on. Let's transition to the next topic. Keeping it here in Minnesota, what do we think the Gophers' offensive MVP will be this season? Curdy, let's start with you.
I think it's the easiest pick, but they're going to throw Darius Taylor the ball this year. That's going to be the new wrinkle, and he's going to get 30 carries a game. PJ won't be able to help himself. I expect him to get at least 30 touches in the first game. Iowa's going for at least 30 touches, assuming he's healthy. Same with Wisconsin. Same with Penn State. Same with Michigan. So PJ's going to get Darius Taylor the ball as much as possible this year. So it's the safe pick. It's the obvious pick. I'll throw out somebody that I think has a surprise year, and I'll throw Lemeki Brockington is going to be receiver number 2. That's my bold prediction. But yeah, as far as offensive MVP, I'm going to go Darius Taylor.
I like it. Yeah, that'd probably be my top pick too. And that's like hoping that he stays healthy the entire year.
Yeah.
But obviously, like for our team too, I feel like even if he plays 9, 10 games, and if he misses a couple, he still could easily be the most productive offensive player just with the way we're going to use him. But
Yeah,
if I had to have another guy, I would just say Brosmer. Just if he is successful and has that kind of arsenal of wide receivers to throw to, then maybe they do let him open it up a little bit more. We still will probably be run heavy. But if for whatever reason Taylor has injury issues again and Rosemer can stay healthy too, then it's going to be mostly on his shoulders probably to facilitate that offense.
And I think if it's Brosmer or is in the conversation to be MVP, then we're doing great.
We're having
the
a
team's
great
really taking
season.
off. Exactly.
At least number or 8-4 at least, I'd say, if Brosmer's MVP. Yeah.
Michael Bostrom disagrees with me. He's got Elijah Spencer receiver too. That's a popular pick, Mike.
Yeah.
I went bold.
If he is number 2, that'd be great. I think he has got that talent, and I hope that he does.
I got to see him catch the ball first.
Yeah.
That's been his knock because he drops too many balls in practice. So.
Yeah, PJ doesn't like that.
No.
For me, I think it's going to be Darius Taylor. I don't think we're going to trend too far away from running the football. Co says, I hope it's Max Brosmer as well. And boy, I hope it is too. If I'm going to pick a guy that's not going to be just for the sake of being different, I got D-Jack. He's probably been the offensive MVP, like like the X factor, if you will.
Without him, there's no passing game the past 2 seasons, pretty much.
Exactly. So I'm going to give him that. He's a leader. He's proven that he's, probably the best part of the offense. Aside from running the ball, he is the reason we can get the ball in the air, like you said, Kurt. So I'm going to throw him in there. Let's see some of these comments.
Kosev's got some more. I don't trust Spencer to catch the ball enough to be receiver too. I'm there with you. I want to see it first. I hope I'm wrong because a lot of people, Ryan Burns, 247 writer, has been very high on him or has heard good things about him. So I'm hoping I'm wrong there. Let's see. Then he's got. I just took it away. Had some drops Saturday, but it's also sweet TD. That might have been about D-Jack. I'm not sure when that one came in. It was a little delayed on my end, but I think he's talking about Jackson there potentially.
Sure.
If Jackson really were to be the offensive MVP, would you think that's like because he had an amazing, outstanding season, or the rest of the receivers just didn't live up to the hype?
No, I think for him to be in that conversation, he would have had to have some help because if no one
Yeah,
else steps up, then the passing offense is going to look the exact same as it did
yeah,
last year, in my opinion. Where Jackson still has,
Yeah.
what do you have, like 750, 800 some yards? Still like
yeah,
respectable, but like he was it. So,
right.
um, yeah. To be honest, I think. Oh, he's saying that was Spencer. Elijah Spencer had a sweet touchdown grab from. That's what Cole was saying. To be honest, all the receivers could probably catch the ball better. They all had drops, multiple drops last year. Now
Yeah,
you could blame the quarterback a little bit for that, but yeah, I think if you're talking about Daniel Jackson having like a Tyler Johnson or even Rashad Bateman, I
right.
know he's not exactly a clone of either of those two players, but if he has production like that, then yeah, I think
Yeah,
somebody else clearly stepped up, whether it be Spencer, Lemecki,
yeah,
or one of the new guys that transferred in. So
yeah. Like I'd
we'll
say
see.
he'd need like a few highlight plays, touchdowns, obviously, reasons that you're winning games, like moving the
Yeah,
chains, getting crucial fourth downs, etc. Which he is capable of doing, and we've seen him do. So,
yeah.
along with the rest of the receivers doing well as
Who
well.
you got defensively?
Defensive. I'm just gonna go with Cody Lindenberg. I want to say Devin Eastern, but I'm going to say Cody Lindenberg because he's coming back after a season with injury. He's going to be hungry. He's a leader of the defense. I'm just expecting him to have a solid season this year, getting back to where he was, even better. And um, I guess I hope that he does have a season left just for him. I think he's a great player, and I hope that he has such a great season that he is the MVP. So I'm going to go Lindenberg.
I like it. I hope it's a linebacker. We would have never picked a linebacker, even consider one last year. So if it's a linebacker
Right.
that wins defensive MVP, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Max.
Yeah, I feel like I've been high on this guy ever since last year, but I got to go Jack Henderson. He just is a freak. Like I
Yeah.
know he doesn't really play like the true safety position, but he sometimes, and I know he's not at that level, but he's kind of like our own little honey badger. Like he can just play wherever. He can help in the run game. He didn't, he's not like a covered defensive back, but he did have some interceptions, in zone
Yeah.
coverage at least. And I just feel like if what we're hearing is true about the new defense, like he can just play a little bit freer. Probably going to see him come on a lot more blitzes and maybe
Right.
some intricate packages. So
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that can kind of play anywhere and is versatile and can help in both the pass defense and just like rushing the quarterback and run support too.
I hope this speed package that PJ talked about, I and maybe the other linebackers got a lot better in pass coverage because last year's pretty poor. I trust Cody. He was banged up. But if Jack Henderson bumps inside, I'm going to say I called it. I threw that idea out there early on. I would love to see it because he can play zone
Yeah.
coverage. He is good at covering those underneath routes. He got a couple picks last year. So like you said, and he's a great tackler. So having him,
And he's big enough to,
yeah, he's like
not
6'3",
linebacker size,
215,
but
I think is what he's
yeah.
listed at. So, I mean, that's like, I don't want to say too big, but you don't see a lot of outside corners listed at that.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, he's great. For me, there's a lot of guys. They're high on the D line, but I just want to see Jaw Joyner take that next step, put it all together, get a few more holding calls this year, and he's gonna get double-digit sacks. I'm going Jaw Joyner, defensive MVP. He's gonna make plays this year. He's gonna win games via strip sacks. Yeah, I think he's gonna take that next step because I think he wants to get drafted, and he's got the pass rushing ability to be that guy. So if we could get
I
a
like it.
Boye Mafe type season, I know Boye Mafe didn't get double digit sacks, but if he can have a season and be as impactful as it seemed Boye was, I think that would be a great step. Now that's going to be dependent on whoever's opposite of him getting there as well. That's been the bigger struggle. But if we can just generate a consistent pass rush, I trust Jaw Joyner to beat enough double teams to get the job done. So stick with
Yeah.
Jaw Joyner as the defensive MVP.
I like it. I like all those picks. And I hope all of them have a tremendous season. It's going to be exciting. I'm really excited for this defense in particular because I hope that we really just kind of blow out the gates. You know what I mean? Just blitz, rush the quarterback, get other people involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if your two corners can stay healthy and you figure something out at safety, I think they're going to be a lot better than what people think they will
Yeah.
nationally, at least.
Right. All right. And then, kind of on the same page here, but at a conference level, who do we think will be
That's
the
right.
Big Ten offensive player of the year? Um, I'll just start. I think
Yeah,
it's Dylan Gabriel.
it's too obvious. It'll never happen.
It's too obvious, but and I'm just gonna pick it.
Yeah,
Tremendous quarterback. We know what he can do. I have Oregon going to the Big Ten championship, but losing to Ohio State. But a large part of that reason for the successful season is Dylan Gabriel. So he's my Big Ten offensive player of the year.
fair enough. It's probably the smart pick. I'll go next. I would throw out there, like I said, I have them at 7-5. I could be dead wrong. USC's offense is still going to be legit. I think Miller Moss is going to throw the ball all over the yard. Maybe a little bit of a dark horse pick, but I'm going to take Miller Moss for just the stats he's going to put up as the offensive player of the year in the Big Ten. Might be tough to do because I don't have him get into that conference championship game, and sometimes it feels like that's a
Right.
requirement. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll take Miller Moss.
Yeah, tough to argue with that. I mean, quarterback at USC tends to work out under
Yeah,
this
Lincoln
regime,
Riley.
so it's
Yeah,
not a bad pick. I wonder what his odds are actually. If you can even bet on Big Ten Player of the Year, it's probably not bad value.
I bet you can bet on it somewhere. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I realistically had to pick, I would probably say Dylan Gabriel too. I think just the numbers he'll put up and just the way that Oregon's offense operates, it's hard not for him to just kind of dominate the stat categories. I kind of want to say Quinshon Judkins too from Ohio State, but it's tough when they still have Travion Henderson. That I feel like he's still going to split the bulk of the carry.
Yeah.
So as a player, I think he could alone, but I think
yeah.
just with that, sharing the
Well,
load
then
is going to be tough.
I could be way wrong on this. I don't follow Ohio State, every day. But I thought early on Trayvon Henderson was actually standing out more in like the early stuff Chip Kelly was
Right.
putting in. But so,
And
like
that's,
you said,
yeah,
I'm
he might
sure
not
it's going
even
to be like
start.
50-50. It's going to be
Right.
just a two-headed
Yeah.
monster. So
Yeah. And like
Nice.
even as like a dark horse kind of too, like Darius Taylor could be in the mix too. Like if you look at the
oh yeah,
numbers he put up from last year, just in the very small sample size, that was still one of the most productive short stints we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. And finally, defensive Big Ten player of the year. I'll go ahead and start with this one too. I think it's going to be JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State. Tremendous defensive player. Last year, 38 total tackles, 5 sacks. I don't think that he's going to go get any worse this year. He's only going to improve returning there, and Ohio State's just formidable this year. I think that he's got a good shot at winning the defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I think if I was going to go someone on Ohio State, I almost went here. I didn't. Caleb Downs, transfer from Alabama,
Yeah.
just a freak athlete. Probably going to get some votes. I think just if they use him as a returner because he was a great returner at Alabama as well. So I just feel like his name is already out there so much. Where odds wise, I bet you he's up there. But I'm gonna go Mason Graham, the D tackle from Michigan. Had a great year last year. Supposed to be one of the top picks in the draft this upcoming year. He messed up a lot of. It's Mason Graham, isn't it? I should have looked that up before. I think his name is Mason Graham. Anyway, he messed up a lot of offenses last year. Had a handful of sacks as a defensive tackle, which is not easy to do. So I expect him to have another big year and be a force up front. So I would go Mason Graham as far as conference wide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't really argue with either of those. I guess to pick someone different, I'd probably go Abdul Carter out of Penn State. He is switching. He's moving from linebacker to that edge rush position, so I feel like they're just going to let him unleash on the quarterback. I think that'll help numbers wise and just his overall production. But
They're great at
um,
finding those guys. I feel like ever since, I mean,
yeah,
even
like he
before
could
Micah
be like
Parsons, but they have one every
right.
year.
That's exactly what I picture. Like once they moved him to edge, it's like so they just want him to be like Micah Parsons. All right,
Exactly.
cool. That must be nice. But yeah, I feel like him just from an overall production, and even it's hard too not to think about like Higgins from Iowa, but we're always on defense, so he's just gonna have unlimited tackles. But still pretty impressive that he was able to withstand that throughout the entire year. He had like
Oh yeah,
130 something tackles. Like that's the leading tackler on the Gophers. I think had like 60. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
yeah. I thought for sure someone would pick Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, but nobody did.
It's hard
Yeah,
to put a D
I
back
thought
though.
about it, but I think just like we were saying, not saying that they're not going to be like a top team. I just think that getting your team to a conference championship and you being a good reason for that,
Yeah,
um, I think that that weighs a lot. So
yeah.
that's kind of the reasoning of my picks.
And then MVP, like you said, Higgins from Iowa. Really, any linebacker from Iowa. You could throw out Castro, the DB from Iowa, and then I think the Purdue safety will get a lot of attention as well. Let's see, what's his name? Dylan Thieneman, whatever his name was, stood out as a true freshman last year. He's a really good player. So again, though, I don't think Purdue's going to be high enough up there
Right.
to garner that national attention. But yeah, that's who we
Yeah.
got.
All right. Well, with that, those are our topics for tonight. We appreciate you all listening as always to Sky U Pod. Again, check us out on YouTube, X, and wherever you listen to your own podcasts at home. We encourage you to check out our partner's website, thecollegefootball.com, for many more college football podcasts and articles. Um, Please like and subscribe. Leave us comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know who your standings are and who your offensive players and defensive players of the year are for the Gophers and for the conference. But
Let
as
us know how dumb
always,
our picks were.
yeah, right, right. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Go Gophers.